I keep forgetting that just abruptly ends. Welcome to the Horror Syndicate's Horror Movie Massacre, our Wednesday night show. Used to be our Sunday night show, used to be our Friday night show. It's whenever we want to do it. And we want to welcome everyone to the show. I am Razor, and I dare you to stay off drugs and resist drugs and violence. I dare you. Dare. Do you know what dare means? Drugs are ridiculously exciting. Anyway, tonight we're back to doing the episodes where we talk about films rather than rank them. We'll get to ranking later. We're going on a journey to Texas and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which is one of my favorite horror movies of all time. Definitely top five. I do think that it belongs somewhere in the top 10 of all time. Let me know what you think. If you're new here, you can comment. We'll answer. We are live. This isn't a recording. So if you could subscribe to the Horror Syndicate's YouTube channel, we just passed, or we're getting closer to 1,300. I'd like to be over 13,000. Yeah, I'll bring Seth in. We'll get this party started with a bang, like they say. And, Two-Face says that in Batman Forever. Uh, Seth, the black screen. There he is. What's happening today? Ugh. Is there a major delay, or can you not hear me? Okay, why don't you back out and come back in, and then I'll just kind of vamp and turn my volume down. Vamp because there's no one beta, there's no one Gareta. Anyway, who's enjoying our our trip through the Puppet Master movies at the moment? We're going through all the Puppet Master movies. We've gotten to whatever the last one was, the seventh movie after Curse. All right, Seth, are you with us now? I don't know if you can hear me. Can you hear me?
I keep hitting leave and it's not.
Or I'll just kick you out.
I can hear you.
Okay, well, try now. Oh, there he goes. Never mind. Anyway, we're going through all the Puppet Master movies, ranking them, rating them 5 stars. I have my notebook here. I wanted to show everybody that I've been writing everything down, and I know the scores of almost everything we have up to the Puppet Master movies. And I have a list of movies that we are going to redo because the situation essentially they got hijacked, and just bear with me here. So movies like Resident Evil, Apocalypse, and Extinction are not 90% score movies. They should be in the mid 70s at best. And then there's movies like the Conjuring movies and the Annabelle movies that are, in my opinion, there's rated way too high. And if you look at where most of the ratings are coming from, and they're all 5 stars coming from the Philippines, oddly enough. And I just don't know if they're taking the time to really kind of gauge whether or not the movie's any good. All right, Seth, let's see how you're doing now. Give me a
So
middle
far, so
finger.
good.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, just a little technical difficulty. It feels like we haven't done a show in more than a week, but it's only been a week. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah, we did
Like,
last
when I start,
Wednesday.
yeah, when I started playing the theme, it felt like, I guess because we've been doing 2 shows a week for 7 months, 7, 8 months now, and missing the discourse show for Father's Day, kind of screwed me up a little bit.
Yeah,
How was your Father's Day?
it was good. How was yours?
Not good. Woke up
Yeah.
early in the morning, went and got a breakfast pizza for me and the kids. Got home like, hey guys, wake up! I got a breakfast pizza for you. And I was like, oh, cool. So we go in my bedroom and we're eating breakfast pizza together. And then they go back out and do their thing. And I'm like, not one of those little shits said Happy Father's Day or thank you for that matter. And so I was like, whatever, the day is long. So I was working on the 5-star rating stuff, and I took a nap at about 10:30 because I woke up at like 5, and I woke up at 1 and nothing from the kids all day. And then about 3:30, I was like, I need to go grocery shopping, and they're like, okay. So I'm like, nothing. So I go grocery shopping, and I get all this great stuff and their favorite snacks and whatnot. And I come home and I walk in the door, and Reynolds looks at me as I'm carrying the groceries in, doesn't get up, and I put the groceries down, go back out, get another load. Looks at me again. I'm like, this motherfucker's not gonna help me. And I get in the house, and I walk over and I just take his phone away from him and turn his Xbox off. I'm like, do you guys realize it's Father's Day and I went grocery shopping and you guys didn't even help me? It didn't even offer to help me. And then Helena pokes her head up over the couch. I just woke up. I'm like, you guys suck. So yeah, and then I made amazing burgers, and still no thank you, no Father's Day. Anyway, uh, I did manage to watch the Texas Chainsaw Massacre over the weekend, and man, I love this movie. I know you're a bigger fan of the second movie versus the first one, but man, this movie is so fucked up and so realistic in many ways. And I don't know, like, what are some of the things that you take away from this one? Like,
Well, I
because I know
absolutely
you love the
love.
second, but go
Well,
ahead.
yeah, but I absolutely love the first one as well. I think it's a great movie. Um, I could speak very highly of it. And the weird thing is, like when we were doing, when I was doing my scores based on the criteria that we have, like I was surprised about how low it was, and I even did some adjustment to get it a little bit higher. But like, I love this movie more than what my score is going to indicate when we get to that part. Just want to throw that out there.
Yeah, your score upset me, and I feel like the fix is in. I feel like the fix is in. I think that you're trying to sabotage the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, so part two will be because of what happened with the final chapter. Chapter. I think you're getting your revenge, Seth's revenge here. No,
Well,
when I mean looking at,
the,
go ahead.
I mean, to be clear, I don't think the second film is better than the first by any stretch of the imagination. I have a lot of fun with part two because it's so batshit crazy, and we'll talk about that next week. But like, I think the first film is the better film. It's the best film in the series for sure.
I think well, and you got to admit that it's one of those landmark horror films. I mean, it's a trendsetter in a way. I mean, there
Yeah.
was nothing like it before it came along in 1974. The filmmaking was so guerrilla, so like indie. I mean, they talked about how hot it was on the set all the time because they were, deep in Texas, and I mean, Gunnar Hansen. Imagine him wearing that get up, through the whole shoot and being in that house. And even the set dressing of the house is disgusting, like there's so much. At least the one girl got to be in a freezer. I wonder if it was on, you know. Oh, thanks for having this event. Okay. Sure. Thanks for
You're
checking us
welcome.
out. Yeah. Yeah, if you're new here, please head over to YouTube and hit the subscribe button if you're not on YouTube. Our good friend Sean Sheridan is here and on YouTube. I had this oh, there it is. This fancy little doodad. Boop. It's a little video of all that shit that people say, "Oh, go do this, that, and the other," because we need more attention, we need more followers, and all that stuff. And we do. We need more followers, but we also like who we have. Um, Monster TCM fan. Good. Yes. Let's share this video. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre is one of my favorites as well. I even brought my little buddy the pop out with today. Eee. The buzz is back. So I was allowed to rent this on fantastic. I so I've told the story 100 times about seeing Revenge or Freddy's Revenge My mom tested me shortly after seeing that. I was like, I like scary movies. So she got this as my next. This was my follow up to the first two Elm Street movies. So if you think about it, this is the third horror movie I have ever seen in my life. Maybe fourth, because I'm not sure where Children of the Corn fits in. Uh, you moved to Texas because of this movie? Have you been to the house and eaten the food there? I've heard it's good. Um, yeah. So my mom showed this to me, and I know I remember it shocked the hell out of me. And then I was like, "Is there more?" And luckily, the sequel had come out by that time, so I got to see both of them like really close together. My mom said she saw this one at a late night grindhouse with a boyfriend that was a little bit older. He took her because she was only 15 when this came out, I think. So she said, "Oh my God, they've been there. How about that? That's super cool." Um, but yeah, it's just I would love to have. I mean, we this question gets popped up a lot. If you could go back in time and see one movie when it opened, what would it be? I'll be honest, this would be on my list because of how real it looks like. It's really stuff that's really happening. Like you're following around these kids. I mean, Jesus, we're gonna get into this for sure. But I want to get like if you can enlighten me with maybe some like. Do you remember the first time you saw this one?
I was in high school. So my one of my really good friends at the time, during high school, like this was his favorite horror movie of all time. It might have been his favorite movie of all time. He absolutely loved it, and so um, he, I was hanging out with him, and he's like, "You have to see this," and so we watched it. We watched his VHS copy, and it was like I remember when I first watched it, I kind of had like I don't know if it was necessarily like not necessarily being a snob, but like to the point of like the characters, um because there's really nothing there with the characters. You don't get to know them at all, and it
Except
took
for Franklin, you get to know that bastard.
yeah, the only character that you root for to die. Um, but like it took a couple more viewings for me to appreciate the film for what it was, and that's what it like. Getting to know the characters wasn't really important because of the way that it was made, where it kind of makes you feel like it's a documentary and you're there with the kids. You're along on this ride of terror. So it took me a little bit to appreciate this one. Um, I mean, I
I don't
always
know.
liked it, but
I don't think Franklin's acting's bad. I think it's fantastic because he's not. There's sorry, Sean just shitting all over this movie today. Um, yeah, if you want to share the links, go ahead. We do have the Horror Syndicate group you can go into and share the videos also. Um, it's just gotta has to be accepted into the group. But Franklin, I think his acting was good because he got to the point where he pissed Sally off in that scene where they don't have the flashlight. Like that was legit anger that she had. So I don't think he was that bad of an actor. He was just annoying.
well, he's very annoying. He's hard to take. You know,
Yeah, all he
like my
does.
my, my, my favorite meme I think of all time is like it was like Franklin, the guy in the wheelchair that you root to die for, something like that. It was because he's such an annoying fucking
Well, I mean,
character.
right away they get him out of the van to take a piss, and how would you feel? You can't use your legs. You try to go pee. A car goes by, somehow knocks you down a hill, and you go rolling. Probably got piss all over yourself now.
Well, I get that, and then also with everyone else kind of running off and doing their own thing and having fun
Yeah.
while he had he's limited. Like there's aspects to the character and to his situation that you could sympathize with a little bit, but like his personality, he just like he whines maybe a little too much, or it seems like he whines too much. I
Well,
understand
really,
the Franklin complaints.
yeah. What I think is he is a woe is me type of person who feel always want somebody to feel bad for him. And I'm not a big fan of Franklin. There's certain things in the movie I like about him. Like whenever, like what you said, they were running off doing their own thing. Come on, Franklin, it'll be fun. When he starts doing that shit, I
Yeah.
think that's hilarious. Everybody sees things differently, and I don't think that Drayton's the only good actor or performance in this movie. Sean, I think you're out of your mind yet again, because like the hitchhiker Nubbins, that's a great performance. Like, dude, like I thought he was tweaking out of his mind. And I also think Gunnar Hansen's performance was fantastic. I mean, he was playing. I mean, you got to see how what you got to understand what he was doing in this movie. He was playing somebody who was obviously abused by the others and put down on. I mean, Seth, you we talked about this. You tell them exactly what the performance that Gunnar was going for here in this movie, because he did a
Well,
great job.
it's a combination of Gunnar's performance, but then also the sort of the brilliance of the story being like almost a reverse home invasion.
Mm-hmm.
So you have all these kids that just feel the need to just walk into people's home. So to be fair, these kids deserve what came to them. But you see it especially after, what was it, the last couple that come into his home. Like he starts to freak out. He's like,
He doesn't know what to do with himself.
he doesn't know what to do himself. He's like, he takes care of them, but then he's just, he's like, he's all distraught. He's looking out the window.
Because
He's
he's like a
scared.
child.
Yeah, right. He's got the mind of a child.
Yeah.
He's a character who was raised into this specific lifestyle, so he doesn't understand the concepts of right and wrong because of the family dynamic. And so he's terrified, and I think Gunnar kind of portrays that very well.
Mm-hmm.
Like Leatherface always kind of gets. I always feel weird about people putting Leatherface on the same sort of pedestal as like Jason or Michael, because Leatherface isn't necessarily evil. He
Right.
was conditioned to live a certain way without any understanding of right and wrong. And again, it is almost like a reverse home invasion where these strangers keep walking into his house. I mean, and he's left there all by himself when he wasn't supposed to be, as Drayton kind of punishes Nubbins for. So that's my take on it.
Yeah, and I think that's a pretty good take on it. Leatherface, he is the guy, well, like I said, kind of like a child.
Yeah.
And see, that's the problem. You find somebody annoying, you think their performance is bad. That's not. I mean, he is annoying. He's creepy and like. You remind me of Justin Bieber. I wish you knew who that was, because he hates everything, and you seem to hate just about everything too.
Well, I mean, I don't think Sean hates everything. I
It seems
mean,
like it.
the
My
the
filter's off,
characters.
by the way, because I'm super tired. So
Yeah, the characters, they can be a little hard to take, I think, at
some of
times.
them. I mean, Franklin for
but
sure.
but that right, but like it's by the design of the movie and of the characters themselves, of the story. Like I think where I can understand where he's a little annoyed by Nubbins. Like I also understand where that's Nubbins is a product of his environment as much as Leatherface is.
Yeah.
And it's part of that weird family dynamic and the way that they were raised.
But you gotta love. If you don't love Nubbins, you love Chop Top.
Nubbins, where's the fuck you, Charlie?
Yeah, where's the fuck you, Charlie? Because Chop Top is fantastic.
For so many years, I thought Chop Top was Nubbins.
Well, I mean, it's hard to come back from, getting run over. So I just thought they were twin brothers. That's what I always thought. I don't know if they're twins, but they're definitely brothers.
Well, I mean, but by the point I saw like part 2, like
Yeah.
I've seen Jason get resurrected by lightning. I've seen Michael Myers get shot in both eyes and caught in an explosion. So I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, just typical horror movie BS. Character
Sure.
survives. But yeah.
Yeah. I think, and I'm super tired. I'm so sorry. I haven't gotten any sleep for some reason this week. Uh, what's this? Lick my lick my plate, you dog dick. Actually, I had Bill Moseley sign my autograph saying that. So, dog will hunt. Yeah. Um, I lost my train of thought. That's one of the things I was going to say. The three characters that really matter in this movie to me. Well, I guess Sally does too, but are Drayton. Sean did mention Drayton, and Drayton. Jim Sydow, he was really good because he kind of plays three different character, not three different characters, but like the way his character's portrayed is at the beginning, he seems like he is trying to ward these kids off from going, just have them keep going, because he has no taste for violence. He says that, and then later on, Sally comes back to the gas station. He puts her in a sack and starts hitting her with a broom. So that was funny. And then he starts treating Nubbins and Leatherface like shit. Later on, he's got more dimension than the other two characters. Really, I would say.
Yeah, well, Drayton has he's the one that's a little bit more with it than the other two. So he's sort of like he's kind of taken on the head of the household
Yeah.
position within the family as the older brother, and he does say towards the end, he can't stand violence or something to that effect.
No.
And it did seem like he was trying to keep them away from there, and even there's that possibility too, because he does kind of chew out Nubbins for leaving his brother alone in the house, like he like it got to the point where like he had to things were the way they were because of so like he had to go through with everything by the end because of how everything unfolded, but it wasn't like he was intentionally trying to send the kids to the house, but
It
because
was
they were.
almost like a cleanup job in a way.
Yeah,
He had to clean
yeah,
up
pretty
his
much, yeah,
mess.
yeah.
And which is I like, and he's probably my favorite character between the two movies, the two movies he's in, and he's expertly played, in my opinion, by Sydow. He did a great job.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So he's like when I watch the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I absolutely do not watch it for Sally and her friends because the three other kids whose names I can never remember, even though I've seen the movie a million times or whatever, but they don't matter. Even Sally, to an extent, the only reason that she might matter is because at the end of the movie,
Because she survived.
she's the final girl, like one of the first really
Yeah.
final girls, and one of the best, in my opinion, because of all the shit she goes through. Which that is something I want to dive into in a minute. Is like how much shit she went through. Because I always like to compare, like Sally and Lori and Nancy and Sydney and all this different stuff, and Ashley Lawrence's character Kirsty. They all end with an IEY sound. Lori, Sydney. You ever notice that?
Yeah.
All of them.
The thing is, like, Sally went through the most, like, I think out of all the
Look
final
what
girls.
your brother did to the door. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Out of all the final girls, Sally went through, I think, probably the most traumatic experience, with everything that she witnessed, and I think the way that it ends with her laughing hysterically at the end
Yeah.
is just the perfect cap off to that. Because a lot of times movies characters go through traumatic shit and it doesn't really seem to affect them.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the great thing about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre is that Sally was fucked at the end. Mentally, she was fucked.
Well, not according to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 22.
Yeah, but then she got thrown into a pile of trash.
Yeah, she became. Yeah, it's true. Like legitimately. But she got Laurie Strode.
Yeah.
if you will. But yeah, no, I love that. That's one of the things I love. I love how hysterical she is at the end of this movie. But the thing I wanted to talk about with her in all the stuff she goes through, I mean, you never really think about like her in the car or anything like that, or it all happens once everybody goes missing.
Hmm.
So it's Franklin. She has to deal with him first of all, her brother, and he is annoying as fuck. And they lost the flashlight, and he's being he's like picking at her, like nitpicking at her. So she has to deal with that. And then then Franklin dies. She goes all the way to the house, gets chased up and down, gets her hands tied to a chair, which also has bones on it from another human, and then gets subjected to the three crazy people in the family who all have three different personalities.
Hmm.
You got Saito or Drayton, who's very calm and obviously the leader. You got out of his fucking mind Nubbins, and then you got Leatherface, who's in his third mask at this point, I
Yep.
think. Yeah, because he wore his pretty lady mask at this point, right? Because they're at dinner.
Yeah. Yep.
And that's one of my favorite scenes in the Sire movie is the dinner scene, because it's Sally screaming for like 15 minutes, 20 minutes, however long it is. Because I mean, imagine the terror of being tied up to this chair, again on top of somebody else's bones, and you got fucking Nubbins, who is already nuts because she met him in the truck or in the van, and then Leatherface, who killed her brother, chased her around with a chainsaw the hell out of the door. Look what your brother did to the door. That, and you know what I'm saying? Like, so she's gone through it, and then she has the audacity to jump out of a fucking window, and like that could break anybody's bones. That fall that she took, and run down the hill while Nubbins is chasing her down, slashing her back with a straight razor. It's like she really fucking goes through the ringer in this movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which I love. I love that, and she's one of my favorites because of what she goes through, and that maniacal laugh at the end of the movie is one of the greatest endings of a horror movie of all time, in my opinion.
Yeah. God damn it, Sean. I try to defend you, and then you put a comment like that.
What do you say? You think I'm harsh on this movie? I watch it every once in a while. I like it until TCM 2 is so much fun. That's next week.
Yeah.
The Black Maria is a great. I know I've never seen that up close. I'd love to have gotten my hands on a copy of that. I have so many other copies of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I think it's the movie I have the most copies of. I even have a copy from the mid 2000s on DVD, where it's kind of black and silver, but if you turn it over, it's like a package of meat.
I have that one too.
Yeah, I love that one. I don't know why, but I really love collecting this movie. When the Blu-ray came out, my wife was so proud of me, or proud of herself. She bought that for me and was so excited, and it was the wrong edition. I wanted that, $40 edition with a nice slip cover and everything. She got me the $15 one. She's like, "You like it?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's nice." Oh man, I have tried. Which one of these do you like? Do you like any of them? Oh man, there's so much about two to like, and we'll explain that next week for sure. Yeah. So anyway, what else? I feel like we've covered this movie before on the Discourse show. That was in 2000, I believe. But what are some of the things that you might find that discuss worthy that you'd like to talk about? Do you have any deep cuts?
The most interesting thing for me is the fact that I showed this to my kids.
Yeah.
Not last year, I don't think, but the year before, or maybe it was last year. But like, I didn't expect them to like it at all. So we did this thing, like, basically my kids, they go to their moms on the weekends, but occasionally I have them on the weekend, and so it was us, and I told them each to pick out a movie, and then we'll watch one's pick, and then we'll watch the other. One of them picked out Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and I didn't think that they would like it because of it being dated, because there's no gore in it,
which is awesome,
right? And just there was a lot about it where I just wasn't sure, and the most interesting thing is they fucking loved it to the point where as soon as it ended, my other kid, the other pick was like, can I change it to Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2?
Nice.
I was like, sure. So we watched part 2 like
what
right
was her
after.
pick before that?
Oh, I don't remember.
Uh,
I don't remember. It was probably like something they've seen before because they do that from time to time. But it was interesting that like I'd never expected them to love it, and they did, and then they instantly requested to see the second one.
That's awesome. Yeah, and it's worth doing it. Like when the what was it, the 2022 movie came out, I was watching it for the show because we were going to do a show on it right after it came out on Netflix last year, and my son watched it with me, and I was like, "What'd you think of that?" Because he had never seen any other ones. He's like, "Oh, it wasn't bad." I'm like, "Okay, well, that's not as good as the other ones." He's like, "Can we watch the first one?" I was like, "Fuck yeah." So same thing, and then he wanted to watch the second one, which he does prefer the second one, and I was like, "Well, you must be Seth's kid." So no, there's nothing wrong with that. He really loved Chop Top, and I think that's something about that movie that I think maybe better is Bill Moseley's performance as Chop Top over I don't know the guy's name, the character's name, but or the actor's name that plays Nubbins. But I do like at least Nubbins makes an appearance though, right? Gotta love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know. I it's nice whenever you find younger people who've never seen this end up connecting with it and liking it. And it's great that a movie that is almost 50 years old, next year it'll be 50, that is still finding an audience today. And I think that's a testament to the grittiness of it because you don't get movies like that that feel real. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like I mean, you might find some like that, but I think they sometimes overdo it, the realism, where it's not real. Like I can't remember what I was watching the other day, but it was like this movie's such grounded in reality. I was like, nothing about this is real. Like there's nothing like this is not how real life is. It's never blue. Like but well then again it's never yellow either, which this movie's very yellow if you're really looking at the color palette. But I don't know. I like that people are finding this, and I can see why people don't like this movie at the same time. I think that's something I think we could talk about a little bit. Is we could understand why Sean, who I love getting his perspective because it's so different. Even though sometimes I'm like you're crazy, but sometimes it's nice to hear somebody's perspective who doesn't think as highly of these movies as we do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like what are some of the things about this one that you could see why younger audiences or even any audience really might not like it? Can you think of anything?
Well, I mean, the horror genre has evolved so much since then. I mean, because again, there's no gore in it, but at the same time, like the violence is implied and it's brutal, just with the implication of the violence.
Well,
without actually
absolutely.
seeing,
Absolutely.
without seeing, yeah. So that's where I think it's brilliant. And then, of course, obviously with the characters, and I went through that when I first watched it, where I was, especially because I was studying film at the time. So like I was, like a little harsh on it for not having great characters, for not doing anything with the characters as far as the main group of protagonists.
Mm.
But again, though, it's all really about understanding because it's a movie that it doesn't really need that because it takes you along on the ride of terror with the characters.
Yeah, good way. Good. Boy, I can't talk today. Yeah, that's very well put. There's some movies that you don't need to have deep characters, and
Yeah.
I love part three. Part three is good, man. I can't wait to get into part three.
Well, there's certain movies where the characters are just like completely like they're cardboard. There's really nothing to them, and it really hurts the movie. Where I don't think that hurts this movie because of the style of the movie, the style of the filmmaking.
Mm.
and the overall effectiveness of everything that's implied.
I'm curious what year Sean was born. He says he likes the remake and the '06 prequel. We're going to do a show where we talk about both of those two movies in one show. I like the prequel to the remake. I don't care for the remake almost at all. I'm a fool
I
for a blonde. The only go ahead.
I prefer the prequel, but I like the remake as well.
I'm gonna rewatch it. Um, but I that's something I saw the remake in the theater the day it came out. And I remember leaving mad. Texas Chainsaw Massacre was my first horror movie. In 1974, I was 5 years old, and my parents thought I was asleep at the drive-in. Yeah, that's awesome. We always got to act like we're asleep, especially if we want to see something. That's got to be hard to do. Trying to stay asleep and watching a movie that it can be completely terrifying, and trying like to not react to it. Yeah, I do too. There's one scene in particular. Nathan talked about it on our Discord show. Is that's from The Swing? I can't remember their name, Judy maybe, who knows? She's on the swing and she gets up and the camera just follows her as she walks up to the house, which is a great shot. And that was kind of one of those shots that I think it influenced Carpenter, didn't it?
What's up?
I think didn't that shot influence Carpenter?
It might have. I think if I remember correctly, when Nate was talking about it a couple years ago on our show, he mentioned something like Spielberg.
Maybe
Really,
Spielberg. Yeah,
yeah.
it's somebody that was a bigger name director than Toby Hooper at the time, even though Toby Hooper became pretty well known after. Well, maybe not after the. Well, I don't know. Uh, yeah, so those are things that are missing from the remake that bother me. Like that scene is so iconic when Gunnar Hansen slams that door home after hitting the guy in the head with the sledge, and then when his girlfriend runs out and jumps off the porch and grabs her in midair. Those are some of the scenes that just, and they didn't have a dinner scene in the remake. That really bugged me. 1993, there it is. You are a young buck. Yeah, low angle dolly shot, absolutely. It's such a great shot. Yeah, I guess Poltergeist would be the movie that kind of put him on the map because he had a few movies before that, like Eaten Alive, of course, which is also there's an Italian horror cannibal movie called Eaten Alive. Check it out. It's your own peril. It's not great, but anyway, Seth Rooney. Another thing I wanted to talk about was you mentioned it already, but the implied gore, the implied. I mean, we get to see a couple of things, here and there sprinkled throughout the movie, like we don't see the mallet hit the skull, but it happens, and there are things like that in the movie that are great, but like everybody swears up and down that they've seen the hook go into the girl's back, and which you never see it. I've watched that scene over and over and over, and you don't see it. But that's one of the great effects that this movie has, is you think that.
Yep.
Funhouse is great. That's one never that doesn't get discussed, by the way, is Funhouse. Nobody talks about that movie, and it's kind of a shame. Not a bad movie at all. The Texas True Story about the Gator. I've yet to see Eaten Alive about the Gator. Have you seen that one?
No, I have not.
I've really had no taste for violence. Anyway, it's shit. Well, I don't know. So I'm sure there's some people who like it. Yeah, but worth a watch. I'll watch just about anything. Seth, guess what I watched today while I was hanging out? I watched
What?
Demons. Demons.
Nice.
A movie we've done a show on twice now. And
Yes.
guess what? We're gonna have to do it again because we didn't do our scores.
That's fine with me.
We'll wait till 2028 to do that.
That's perfectly fine with me. I love demons.
I do too. We'll do a Demons and a Demons 2 show at some point. I do.
Maybe Jared will join us.
3 is decent. Next Generation, yeah. Next Generation is still probably the worst movie I've ever seen. So you need to see more movies. It's terrible. The fourth movie for sure. It's just I don't think it's. I think they're. I think some of it's meant to be bad. Uh, it's really bad. It's the worst. It's definitely the worst movie in this series for sure. I'm not a big fan of Leatherface 2017. So one of those two are my least favorites. I'm gonna give it another shot. I told Nate I'm gonna go in with an open mind, but I hated it. I did not like it at all. So I'm gonna be going with an open mind because we're gonna talk about that. So the way we're gonna do the Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies is a little bit different. We're doing a show on 1, a show on 2, and a show on 3. Right? Is that or no? Are we doing 3 and 4? I already forgot. I think we're doing.
I thought we were doing 1 on 3, but I could be wrong.
Well, because I want to double up on some of the movies. So we're going to double up on 03 and 06 and 13 and 17. So maybe we can double up on 22 and 4. I don't know. And do a show on 1, 2, and 3. Because 3 is like, that's a movie, in my opinion, that does not get enough respect. You get Ken Foray, who's really great in that movie. Viggo Mortensen just wants to be called Tex. Told you I want to be called Tex, and he's so dramatic about it. I think 3 is underrated, like completely.
3 was my favorite sequel for a long time.
3 Hollywood Chainsaw Hookers. No, we're not doing that one. Got to find a copy of that. But no, I think I remember in 1989. You know, this was the height of my youth in horror, I think, before I became a teenager, because that year we got Jason Takes Manhattan, which isn't great. Freddy versus Jason. Freddy Dream Child, which isn't great. Revenge of Michael Myers isn't great. But then I saw the trailer for the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3. It was Leatherface. The Saw is Family. And it was that Excalibur trailer, you know, where the chainsaw rises up and Leatherface holds that whole trailer. I was like, oh my god, I cannot wait to see this. Yeah. You know, like, and I saw it sometime that summer, I think. This guy, we lived in San Diego on a Marine base, and this guy, he just came back from overseas, and he had bootlegs of that and Exorcist 3. So I got to see both of them on the same day before they were even in the theater. So it was really cool. He had a waterbed, and his waterbed had tape decks, like, you know, the old VHS tape deck things. You pull it out, and they're all sitting there. Yeah. And I saw one that said Demons 2, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3, and Exorcist 3. I was like, oh, what's Demons 2? And then I just watched all 3 of them all in one day. Best day of my life. And I have 2 kids that were born, not compared to seeing Demons 2 for the first time. But anyway, I love Demons 2. I've been trying to get my daughter, who's 9, to dress up as Sally for like the last 2 years. She won't do it.
Oh God, Sally.
Sally's amazing. She's so amazing that she goes blind and still is on the prowl trying to get the job done. I'm just saying.
She's cool when she's a demon. But before then,
Sean, watch it and report back. Okay. Because I love it. Let's do our slash scores. You want to?
Sure.
So as anybody who watches the show knows, they should have subscribed by now. Sean, are you even subscribed? I never asked that. You always, end up watching our shows, which I really appreciate, but I never know if you're subscribed. You should get your friends to subscribe. Anyway, first of all, I want to give a shout out to my boy Peter Cushing, because the picture's just here, and why not? Respect. And give us a shout out to Freddie. We did our ranking on the Elm Street series last week, and the week prior we did our rankings for the Friday the 13th series. So check them out. They're on YouTube and ready for you to watch. And of course, it's summer. Jaws had a birthday the other day. This is from Jaws 2. But if you've been following us and watching these shows, we came up with a 10 category way to rate these movies. And you got cinematography, you got acting, score, all the good stuff. And it comes out to a nice percentage. You add up 10 things and a score of 1 to 10, it's going to come out to a percentage. So we call it our slash score. I think we landed on that name. I haven't called it anything in a long time. So it's called a slash score. And then the cool thing is when we go to do our ranking show, which we do at the end of all of these. So when we're done to talk about every single one of these movies, we'll have all these ranked out with our personal rankings and our slash score rankings, which I got to say, and I don't know how you felt about it, but it was kind of surprising the way that they were lining up pretty close for both Elm Street and Friday the 13th.
Yeah.
So anyway, so on our scale, and I'm doing mine first today. I always give you the courtesy of doing yours first because I'm trying to be not a selfish person, but listen, I'm just trying to keep people off drugs today. Okay. So
I just said no.
No, you didn't. You've been saying yes all day.
I have not. I have not hit the pipe today.
Okay. Sad to read. Well, I mean, he's 76 now, so just getting over COVID. I have seen it over 10 years, and thank you, Sean, man. I got to be honest. We may disagree, but I really appreciate you. I really do. Glad you're here every week. It's always great to see Sean Sheridan pop up with some kind of either positive comments or this movie's garbage comment. Whatever, whatever it is, I don't care. I'm in for it. So anyway, my slash score, and yes, it's very high. It's 96%. And I'm trying a different look to our slash score images. What do you think? Is this okay?
Yeah.
Almost makes it look like I'm a part of the family there. I'm as
Maybe
weird
you
looking
are.
as the others. Yeah, I think I am. This is one of my favorite images from this movie. I think the dinner scene is my favorite scene in the entire movie, where there's a lot of great moments, in my opinion, in this movie. But the dinner scene is definitely one of my favorites. The the bone room scene's such an iconic scene. This movie, that's one of the things, like growing up watching horror movies and seeing like any kind of documentary or any kind of like whatever when you think they say Texas Chainsaw Massacre, you're gonna see certain things. The sledgehammer to the head, that's iconic. The slamming the door is iconic. The grabbing the girl off the porch and her flip flop falls off, that's iconic. The bone room, this iconic. I mean, there's a lot about this movie's iconic, and I hate that word sometimes, but it's true. This is an icon horror film, in my opinion. Anyway, I give it a 96, and it's I think in many ways, and I know Sean and Seth even, I think in many ways this is a damn near perfect horror film. It's very terrifying in many ways. It's gross, it's gritty, it's damn near realistic. It's a top 5 horror film of all time, in my opinion. Period. Yeah, that's why I give it 96. I could go into it, but there's only 4 points missing from the 100-point score that we have available. So I think score might be part of it because it's very minimalistic. I think that lost 2 points actually, and then casting because there were nobodies. Even though I think they got the best out of who was available in Texas essentially at that time. Not to mention you got John Larroquette doing the prologue, which was super cool. And he did it for some pot. So I mean, what a gig, Can you read these lines and I'll give you a dime bag?
I do it.
I'd do it for fucking free. Shit. Just buy me a Big Mac. I'll be fine.
I do it for a bag.
So yeah, 96%, kind of high, but I think it's deserved for this movie. I think that's tied with A Nightmare on Elm Street for me. I think may have given Elm Street a 97%, but I mean these are 2 of my top 5 favorite horror films, along with Jaws and Hellraiser probably. Candyman, that's also on my list, but I place those lower than this and Elm Street. Elm Street's number 1. Seth, you gave this a 81%, which kind of surprised me.
I'm gonna get beat up for this one. You know, the okay, so if you ask me like personally what I would give it, just off the top of my head, I'd probably definitely like a 90% at least. Um, but going by our criteria, where it kind of lost some points is the writing, because some of the dialogue is not very good, especially with the group of I don't even know if they're teens, young adults.
No, I think they're
Um,
just in their early 20s.
yeah,
That's all what I always took it as.
yeah. But so like some of the dialogue isn't really great in there, and some of the acting doesn't really stand out for the majority of the cast. Of course, we did talk about some of the ones that did stand out, but just overall, that's why I lost some points. Um, the score is minimalistic. You know, I couldn't really rate it high for kills, even though I loved the way that it was done, where it was
Hmm.
very implied, as we talked about.
Right.
But yeah, so that's why it like yeah, 81% objectively, I think, based on some of the if I'm looking at some of the technical merits. But I think on a subjective level, I would at least give it a 90%. Because I do agree with you that it is one of the best horror movies out there. It's a very effective horror movie.
Yeah, but even
Especially for
so, I
one
mean,
movie.
I was sorry to cut you off, but even
No, go ahead.
so, technically there are problems with this movie. You're right about that, 100%.
Yeah. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Um, I forgot what I was saying.
That's because I cut you off. Sorry. I'm such an asshole. A what?
Yeah, it's a very effective horror movie. I think. You know, with the way it was shot, some of the decisions that were made, um, the sound effects, and some of the score was really good. But yeah, it's. I agree that it's one of the best. Even if my score does not reflect that.
Yeah, and I know that you do love this movie.
Yeah.
Uh, and I was just really surprised to see that score come up. I'm like, okay, we're gonna have well, like compared to some of the scores from some of the other movies that we've already done, I was like, man, that's kind of low, you know.
Yeah,
And
I don't like.
technically,
I don't like want to even look at like my previous scores for other movies because I don't want to know how it compares to some of the other shit that we've done.
yeah, I think that I forgot to mention Grandpa. He said Grandpa. Um, we actually on our original show, The Horror Syndicate Lives. We actually had the guy who plays him, which I'm blanking on his name. Something I don't remember his name. Anyway, he was crazy. He was our very first guest ever on the Horror Syndicate, actually. Um, and I can't remember his name. Somebody help me. Somebody help me. I can't remember his name.
I can't think of it off the top of my head either.
Yeah. I don't know. The Karloff Mummy movie had the unforgettable opening card scene score though.
Oh, Swan Lake.
Swan Lake, yeah. Okay, so yeah, so our score so Seth with his 81% and me with my 96, and so when we come out with our overall rankings for the series, we combine our scores divided by two because there's two of us, and it came out to 89%, which I think's fair for the most part. But the problem when we go when we go to rank all the movies, this is going to fall short of three or four of the sequels of the Elm Street movies. I think it jumps over any Friday the 13th movie, which is fair, in my opinion. But overall, I think this is okay. I'm not too mad. But
Yeah.
I carry most of the weight in this one.
Well,
But
it could have been worse.
well, I mean, think about how harsh I was on the like Freddy versus Jason. I think that was the lowest rating I've given them. It was like 31% on anything so far. I don't know. I think this is okay. This is fine. I'm curious to see what two comes out to. I've already done my part two, so I know where that one lies. So that's going to come to you, what you end up putting it for two. Um, Two is so much fun. I cannot wait to talk about two. There's so much to get into with that one. Such a
Yeah.
different film. Toby Hooper comes back 12 years later to direct, and he makes a completely weird film. I mean, this one was weird with I think, one of the coolest endings of all times. Also, the last 15 minutes of that movie are so fun. And you got some memorable characters like Stretch, which there's a shame they never brought her back. I mean, she's in part three for a split second, but Stretch and Lefty. Lefty dies, but still, with that old "fuck you, Charlie." Um, Anybody who follows the Horror Syndicate on Facebook, we do 5-star ratings, and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Seth, got a 95%. So, yeah,
Nice.
and that's the most blood you see in the whole movie is right there at the very end. By the way, you almost see
Yeah.
almost no blood through the whole movie until Sally's all fucked up. One of my favorite things about this scene is the guy who's driving keeps looking back behind him to make sure they're not chasing him. And of course, you get that great
Yeah.
scene with Leatherface and the sun coming up, just swinging his chainsaw around out of anger or happiness or something. Probably. What do you think it is? Anger? That's right, John Dugan. He's crazy. He was trying to sell us some kind of like waffle iron things. Him and his old lady were selling them or something like that. Then I saw him at a convention later that year. He's like, "Hey, did you ever buy one of my whatever they were? Like, I don't know, it was toaster ovens or waffle irons or what it was." He was weird. Anyway, so overall, not bad scores in my opinion. I mean, 81's kind of low. I'm really curious to how much higher two is going to be for you, because I think there's some things about two that are very similar with the first movie. With like I'm not a big fan of the score on two. I don't know how you feel about it. Um,
Yeah.
it's like bright lights, big titties. Uh, and that's the
Well,
first time.
the funny thing is, I hated two for a long time.
Did you really?
Oh yeah. So I was like, especially knowing that it was the same director. I mean, we should probably
Mhm.
say this for next week, but like, just
We can say
I
it's what.
like when I first watched it, it was so different in terms of style compared to the first one. I was like, what the
Mm.
fuck is this movie? How the fuck could the same guy make this one? But like over time, man, that movie grew on me so much where it became one of my favorites. It's weird.
Yeah, it
Weird
was weird.
story.
That was like I kind of had the same thing that it was such a departure from the original. I liked it, but like when it came to watching, I was like, man, do I really want to watch this again? And then something like I think it was after they released a new edition on DVD in like 2006, I think it was, and it was like white, just showed the chainsaw, and I was like,
Yeah.
oh,
Yep.
the edition I have sucks, so I'll go ahead and get this one. And I watched it again. I was like 26, 27 years old. I was like, oh my god, I think I like this way better than I ever remember.
Yeah.
I had a lot more fun with Chop Top. I just fucking love the scene where Stretch is reporting on the chili cook-off, and the one lady's biting down or taking a bite of that chili, and she like bites into some bone. He's like, that's one of them hard shell peppercorns. I just love Drayton. He's my favorite character in the series. I don't know if I've ever said that.
Yeah.
And he's so good and so charming in the second movie. Like even
Yeah.
that girl says, he's one of the best looking guys or something, which is not true. Yeah, it's 80 cents score for. It's not that good though. Also, it's I don't know. I can hear it in my
Yeah.
head. I'm like, I don't care for it. Dennis Hopper was awesome. Though I can't wait to talk about this, even though I want to talk about it already. Like that scene when he's testing out all the chainsaws and all that.
Yeah.
I put it on the Horror Syndicate's Facebook page the other day because I found it like it was one of my memories, and I was like, God, Lefty just getting it in. And then you got the camera pans up to the guy who's selling chainsaws, and he's like getting all excited about it. It's like, what the fuck is happening here? Like, oh, it's such a fun movie. Yeah, hard shell peppercorns. Anyway, yeah. So that's let's recap real fast. Is there anything we missed? Is there anything we missed, Seth?
Nah, I don't think so.
I mean, there's not much to this movie if you really think about it. And there are parts that are deep. Leatherface is the psychology of the character, kind of maybe.
Yeah.
But I mean, these five people drive out to across Texas in the middle of like 125-degree heat wave. They pick up the hitchhiker. He takes a picture of Franklin and burns it because they won't buy it for $1 or whatever it was. He cuts Franklin, puts the blood all over. And some people say that he marked the car to know that they were gonna. I don't believe that. Do you?
Well, he did. He did
The
mark it
Marcus
with blood.
Burrow?
He marked it with blood on the side.
So
And
that was
then,
intentional.
well, but then I don't know. Drayton has a look on him after he sees that spot on the van, when he first encounters them. I
I
don't
never
know.
thought about that.
Yeah.
I'll have to watch it again for the 1,000th time. It's Toby Hoover. Yep. Okay. Toby was in line at a hardware store and saw a wall of chainsaws and thought what would happen if he started one up and drove.
Don't we all have that thought?
I every day with me at my job, there's chainsaws all around me. Yeah, it does look like a symbol of some kind, and I've seen things where people are like that's a mark of such and such. It's like I don't know. I think he cut his fucking hand and just real like splattered it all over the goddamn side of the van, and I don't think it was a symbol or anything. Maybe Drayton just like, oh, they must have fucking picked up nubbins. They got blood on the side of their car.
That very well could be it. That could have been his sign that Nubbins left his brother at home alone.
Yeah, and then from that point on, Drayton was mad. Then maybe that's why he sent them the other way. Instead of I don't know. It's weird though. Like when I was watching it the other day, I had a question to myself. I was like, so Sally and Franklin are in their early 20s at the latest, at the oldest. They used to go to their grandparents' house when they were kids. So we're talking 15, 20 years ago, if that. That house looks like it's been condemned for 40 years at least. Like it's fucking turning to rubble. It's like how long have the grandparents been out of that house? And also, their neighbors legitimately are the Drayton the fucking Sawyers.
Yeah.
It's like they had to have known them or something. They're not that far away. I know there was a lake down there across. They were probably across the creek or whatever, but they had to have known of them at some point.
Yeah.
I don't know. I was thinking about that. I overthink shit like that, but I'm like, I don't know. Like, what point did her grandparents die? Because the cemetery wasn't that far away from where everything started to happen. I'm guessing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I will say though, like, as
that's hilarious.
as someone who's very antisocial in real life, like I don't know a lot of my neighbors, and I don't care to.
True,
yeah. So.
I mean, I'm probably more social than you are, and I don't talk to my neighbors. There's a lady who sneers at me every time she sees me because I cut my grass once every 10 days, not every 3 days like her. There's the guy who I think has a kill shed that lives next door to me. The bitch next door thinks I check her out every time I'm outside. She's outside, and she's not much to look at. And then there's the crackheads on the corner of the street, and then the guy across the street who keeps giving us Spider-Man posters. So that's the extent of my neighbors.
Yeah, well, I got one neighbor who comes over from time to time and chats with us in the yard, but like, other than that,
that's a good point. Maybe the Sawyers are squatters. Maybe they took the house from somebody else. That's a good point.
I don't know. Wasn't there? I thought maybe there was some sort of dialogue though that was the grandpa's house, the best butcher in Texas.
Well, that's the thing. The grandfather worked at that slaughterhouse. But yeah, I had to reread that one. But they could have lived somewhere else and then took that house because that whole area is desolate in my opinion. Like in my mind, it's like a dead area of highway, which is that like just like Psycho. I mean, think about the Bates Motel. It's pretty much empty because they built that highway that runs in a different direction or whatever it is that they don't need to stop on these back roads anymore to stop at the Bates Motel. That's why the hotel's failing, right? And I mean, Texas Chainsaw Massacre is based off of Ed Gein, which Psycho is also based off of Ed Gein, so it's kind of the same thing. So I think there are, and think about the town in the 2022 movie. Not to say that's anything good compared to this movie, but it's a town that was is forgotten by time, probably because of a highway or something like that that got moved. So the town just got left behind, and I think that's probably what happened with the Sally, the gas station. It's one of the gas stations that got left behind. That's why it never has any gas, probably.
Well, I thought that was kind of like the implied thing anyway, as far as like the backdrop of like the reason why their grandfather led his family to be into this cannibalistic life. Because like the town was dying. I know they really emphasize that in the remake timeline, but I kind of take that away from um, the original set, about the Sawyers as well, because it would kind of make sense, like the grandfather being a butcher and then
Mm-hmm.
being in a town where the economy just dies and um, business goes
Well, hold
elsewhere.
on. What was the butcher? The slaughterhouse was still open, wasn't it? Because they could smell it.
Maybe.
Hmm.
I don't know. I just kind of took it like the family was already in poverty,
Yeah.
and the grandfather found a way to keep him fed.
Yeah. To say the least. You know what we're gonna start doing? We're gonna start eating people. What do you think? Yeah, yeah. Then we could start making lampshades and furniture out of their bones and skin, and we'll keep chickens in the house too.
I would honestly love to see a prequel about the grandfather.
Like set in the 40s or something like that.
Yeah, well, because like we got to a point with the Texas Chainsaw films where they've become less about the family aspect and more about Leatherface himself, and I
Yeah.
feel like they could really benefit from going back to their roots and doing a family story. And because
Well, they tried to.
Grandpa was propped up by the family in the first two films as being the
He
best butcher.
was. Yeah. Well, that and not to mention he was very much looked at as like almost like a kingly figure to the family too.
Yeah.
So there could
So
be a good
like
movie there.
yeah, so like imagine like you would imagine that the grandfather had way more intelligence than the three in this movie. So it would be kind of interesting to see like one of them with intelligence and with some maybe skill and cunning and just being really brutal and methodic. I don't know. I think that'd be kind of cool.
Hey, those guns are no good. Got to use the sledge. I think that's a cool idea. They would try to go back in time though, and with Leatherface 2017, but we're talking further back because the grandfather is in that one, I think, isn't he?
And which one?
The 2017 movie, because they go way back to when
He
Leatherface was a
he
kid.
he appears in a scene I think in the beginning with young Leatherface, and it was like his birthday, like they were sitting at a kitchen table. But there wasn't much of him in the
Yeah,
2017 movie, and that was. I have pros and cons with the 2017 movie because I don't hate it, but we'll get into that down the road.
we will. I'm looking forward to rewatching it because I do like to give things multiple chances. Plus, I own it, so may as well put the disc to work. But yeah, no, I think you're right. I think that would make a pretty cool movie. And yeah, we could call it Head Cheese because he's the big cheese of the family. He's the head cheese, the leader, the head honcho. Uh, And that was the original title of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which I'm glad they opted for the title it has rather than that. I don't know if I'd ever watch a movie called Head Cheese. It just doesn't. That just sounds stupid. Oh, you'd probably like it if you didn't know what was in it, Franklin. Anyway, yeah. So next week we are doing the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. Definitely a great follow up. And I'm glad it took them so long because we would have gotten something different if it would have come earlier. And it might not be as fun as. And I think that one might be the most fun in all of the series. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh, yeah. 100%.
Yeah. Music is my life. Peace. Bill Moseley makes a good night. The other day, Reynolds he had like his skin is peeling from sunburn when he's down in Florida, and he pulled his skin off and looked at it, and then I look away for a second, then I see him with his finger in his mouth. I was like, what are you, fucking chop top now? Taking skin off your body and put it in your mouth? He's like, no, I tossed that. I'm like, okay, psycho. And he's like, we should watch that again. I was like, hell yeah. Come back next week. We will be back. I'm sorry you had a shit day. Hopefully talking some TCM, brighten your day right up, because it is one of the greatest horror films of all time. It is top 5 for me, for sure. Top 3 maybe. Elm Street.
Definitely better than 81%.
Jaws is way better than 81%. You son of a bitch.
I know.
That's okay. I redeemed it with making it up to almost a 90. But I still feel like it's revenge for my low score for the final chapter and me saying, oh, it's a number 3 on the Friday the 13th list. Really, it's one of the best Friday the 13th movies, regardless of what I say. 104 in Central, so fuck that. How humid is it down there? Because I live near St. Louis, and it's humid. It's only 90, but I felt like I was melting, and I got in my car, and it took my fucking breath away today. I got in, I was like, I thought I was gonna die. So
I don't know. Here it got to like mid 70s, and I thought it was too hot. So
shut up, you Northeast son of a bitch. Anyway, yeah, but you get it in the wintertime. You get it when there's like 18 inches of snow and you have to shovel that shit by yourself, and hurt your back and such slipping on ice and shit, man. I hate the summer. Summer's my least favorite, by the way, of all. Even though a couple of the horror films that I love are summer-based horror films, Jaws and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. But anyway, we'll be back next week, and we'll talk about Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. And then we'll do a show on 3 the following week, and then following that, I don't think chronologically it makes sense or it makes any matter. So I think we'll do Next Generation in 2022, and then we'll do the remake and the prequel to the remake, and then we can do the Texas Chainsaw 3D. Do your thing, cuz, and then Leatherface as well. So we'll overall have 6 episodes for Texas Chainsaw. I think that's right. And then, of course, we'll do the ranking show in the middle of August, I think. That's right. Something like that. Because then we're going to the Halloween series, I think, right? Is that right?
Correct. Yeah. In reverse.
Yeah, in reverse. So we'll be talking about the Halloween series, and I think we're going to do a short episode on the Blumhouse trilogy because we just did an episode on that recently. So we'll just do our rankings and scores on that. And then we're going to head right into the Rob Zombie movies for an episode. And then we'll do the Resurrection H2O movies in one episode. And then I think from then we'll go 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We'll all get episodes. I think that's how we're doing it because you and I are both big fans of the Loomis movies. And I could talk about 6 all day long because there's 2 cuts of 6 and we got to talk about both, and then Halloween 3 deserves a full fucking episode.
Yeah.
Maybe a 2-parter. No. And then, of course, we'll do our ranking show, hopefully right around Halloween of the Halloween franchise, all 13 movies ranked and rated. And then after that, I can't remember. I think it's
Phantasm, right?
Is it Phantasm? Okay, because
I thought so. I could be wrong.
I can't remember if we were doing Phantasm in November Or no, that's right. We have to because in November, December, we're going to do some holiday stuff. I think spread some holiday cheer. So yeah, just like we did last year, we did all of the Silent Night, Deadly Night movies, and that was a good time. It was garbage day. Actually, today's garbage day here. So anyway, Seth, any final words before we bounce?
No final words at all.
Okay. Coming up on Sunday, we are doing a new episode of the Horror Syndicate Discourse. It is on a movie called Odd Thomas. We were going to do The Howling, but we're going to push that back a week because Nate wants to do The Howling, which I don't blame him. The Howling is on. By the way, did you know The Howling is on Shudder? 1 and 2 are both on Shudder now. They just put 4 or 5 werewolf movies on there. The Howling 2, An American Werewolf in Paris, or not Paris, London. How did Paris come out of my mouth before London ever would have? Yeah, I know. Ginger Snaps 2 and Ginger Snaps, the third one, are all now on Shudder. Like, I think Company of Wolves is on there too. So they're wolfing out over there on Shudder. So if you're not on Shudder, you're missing out big time. Texas Chainsaw Massacre is on there as well because it is a slashic. It's one of those, in my opinion, it's one of those horror movies you absolutely must see. There's very few, but the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, An American Werewolf falls in that category. In London, not Paris.
Correct.
I almost got myself there. You know, Elm Street falls in that. Halloween, John Carpenter's Halloween.
Thank you.
Yes. Those are all absolute musts. I'll be honest with you. I feel like more Carpenter movies are musts. Like, I think The Fog is a must. I think Prince of Darkness, but I'm very biased to that. In the Mouth of Madness, musts. The Thing. John Carpenter's The Thing is one of the greatest horror films of all time, period. It's the perfect bridge of sci-fi and horror all in one with great fucking effects, a fantastic story, some of the best acting you ever get in a movie, and the best ending in horror history. I said it. It's got the best ending in horror history. So anyway, come back next week. Tell your friends about the Horror Syndicate. We do cool shit all day long, every day. We do 2 shows a week, and maybe we'll do some more coming up. We got some plans. And check out brand new writer just posted his very first article on the horrorsyndicate.com. It is called Deep Cuts #1 Zombies with Weapons. It's about the film Nightmare City, which is a great Italian horror movie by Umberto Lenzi. And I'm a big fan of Umberto Lenzi and Italian horror films. Check out Charlie's Farm if you haven't already. It sucks down under. Yes, The Thing 2. I don't want to see that ever. Who's the Thing in the End? We're going to do an episode on this. Do you want to say who you think it is? I'm going to count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Childs. Oh, come on.
Nobody. Wait,
Nobody.
1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, go, or 1, 2, then go on 3. Lethal Weapon joke. Sorry.
Yeah, I know. What you should do is get out there in your boxer shorts and distract him like a chicken. Anyway, we'll be back next week. Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, one of the funnest horror movies of the 1980s. If you don't think so, then, well, go watch another fun horror movie from the 1980s called Demons 2. Because that one, I think, is the most fun. Bye.